Have you ever stopped and asked yourself what actually makes you feel loved by you? Not by your partner, not by your family, not by your friends, but by the very person you'll spend every single day of your life with, yourself. In astrology, the second house is often associated with money, possessions, and self worth. But the second house also reveals the relationship you're building with yourself. In this video, you'll discover how your second house sign reveals the unique way your soul experiences self-love, the subtle ways you may be disconnecting from your own worth without realizing it, and how to build a relationship with yourself that feels supportive, nourishing, and emotionally safe. So grab your birth chart, find the sign or signs where your second house sits, and let's dive in.
If Aries is in your second house, your soul doesn't feel deeply loved because you've accomplished more, become more confident, or proven your worth to the world. It feels loved every time you choose yourself without apologizing for it. Many with this placement unknowingly believe self love begins after they've earned it, after they've become more successful, more disciplined, more accomplished, or more impressive. They tell themselves that once they reach a certain milestone, they'll finally feel proud of who they are. But your soul has never been asking you to prove your value. It's been asking you to stop negotiating with it. Aries is the first spark of life. It is the instinct that says, I exist. Before achievement, before relationships, before reputation, there is simply the right to take up space. When Aries lives in your second house, your relationship with yourself is constantly being shaped by one question. Do I believe my needs matter simply because they are mine? That question appears in hundreds of ordinary moments, such as, do you trust your first instinct? Do you honor your own timing? Do you let yourself want what you want without immediately explaining it? Do you allow yourself to change your life because you want to? Or do you wait until everyone else understands first? Your soul experiences self love every time you stop treating your desires like something that has to be defended in a courtroom. It doesn't need a perfectly written argument. Sometimes it simply needs your permission. One of the deepest forms of self devotion for this placement is realizing that your desires are not interruptions to your life, they are part of your life. Your soul feels safest when it knows you will not abandon yourself simply because choosing yourself makes someone else uncomfortable. Now, one of the quietest ways someone with Aries in the second house loses themselves is by confusing self sacrifice with goodness. So, you may have learned that being easy to accommodate made you more lovable than being honest, that keeping everyone comfortable was more important than staying connected to yourself. Or maybe every time you expressed a strong opinion, someone called you selfish. Or every time you wanted something different, you were told to be patient, be grateful, be realistic, or think about everyone else first. Over time, you may have become incredibly skilled at postponing your own needs. And this is because you became convinced they could always wait. The problem is your soul doesn't experience that as kindness. It experiences it as abandonment. Every time you silence your own voice to avoid disappointing someone else, Your nervous system quietly receives the message. My truth isn't as important as everyone else's comfort. And that very belief shapes your career, your finances, your opportunities, and your confidence, meaning you hesitate to ask for more. You second guess what you really want. And the tragedy isn't that you don't know your worth, it's that you've become accustomed to putting your worth at the end of the line. The relationship you have with yourself becomes the standard every other relationship quietly follows. If you constantly override your own instincts, other people will often assume they can override them too. If you regularly minimize your needs, people may not realize how much you've been carrying because you've become so practiced at saying, I'm fine. And if you hesitate to ask for what you deserve, opportunities may pass you by. And this isn't because you were not capable. This is because no one knew you were waiting to be seen. Aries in the second house doesn't usually teach the world what you deserve through dramatic declarations. It teaches the world through the countless small moments where you either advocate for yourself or quietly disappear. You teach people how to value your time by the way you value your own time. You teach people how to respect your boundaries by the way you respect them yourself. You teach people how to treat your dreams by whether you protect them or constantly place them on hold for everyone else's priorities. What's interesting about Aries in the second house is that your self worth isn't communicated primarily through your words. It's communicated through your willingness to act on behalf of yourself. Every time you honor your instincts, make the phone call, apply for the opportunity, negotiate your rate, leave the situation that no longer aligns, or finally admit what you truly want, you're sending yourself a powerful message. I believe I'm worth showing up for. And that belief eventually becomes visible to everyone around you. Self love for Aries in the second house isn't about becoming louder, it's becoming more loyal to yourself. Your soul doesn't need grand gestures. It needs consistent evidence that you'll stop abandoning your own needs whenever life becomes inconvenient. One of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself is first to respond to your first honest instinct. Your intuition often speaks before your fear does. So the next time you immediately know what you want, don't rush to explain, justify, or negotiate it. Practice honoring your first honest response before seeking anyone else's approval. Next is to stop making your needs compete with everyone else's. You don't have to prove your needs are more important than someone else's in order for them to matter. So, the next time you're making a decision, ask yourself, if I trusted that my needs mattered too, what would I choose? Then let that answer carry real weight. Next is to keep the promises you make to yourself. Self trust grows every time your actions match your intentions. So choose one promise you've been repeatedly postponing to yourself and fulfill it this week, no matter how small it seems. Your soul is paying attention. Next is to let your desires exist before you judge them. Not every desire needs to be practical before it's worthy of your attention. So spend time writing about what you genuinely want without editing it into something more acceptable, responsible, or realistic. Your honesty is more valuable than your performance. And finally, become the person who stands up for you. You have spent enough time hoping someone else would recognize your value. Your soul is waiting for you to recognize it first. So the next time you find yourself asking, will they choose me? Pause and replace the question with, am I choosing myself right now? That one question has the power to transform the relationship you have with yourself. A great affirmation for you having Aries in your second house is, I no longer wait for permission to honor my needs, my desires, or my worth. Every time I choose myself with honesty and courage, I strengthen the relationship I have with my own soul. What did this confirm that you already knew deep down? Be sure to drop it in the comments below. And if this lit a fire in you, show this video some love with a like, share it with your friends, hype this video, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you've been hiding behind perfectionism, overthinking, staying prepared, or waiting until you feel more confident first, my visibility reset was made for you. It's part emotional reset audio guidance and part visibility activations designed to help you to finally feel safe enough to be fully seen. Be sure to tap the link in the description box below, check it out, and get started. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Taurus is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self love through constant improvement. It experiences self love through consistency. Many people assume Taurus in the second house is simply about money, comfort, or nice things. But underneath all of that is a much deeper emotional need. Your soul longs to know that it can rely on you, not just when life is going well, not just when you're motivated, and not just when you're inspired. Every single day. There's something profoundly healing for your soul when you become someone who keeps showing up for yourself. Because self love isn't only something you feel, it's something you repeatedly experience. Think about the people who made you feel safest throughout your life. Chances are it wasn't because they constantly surprised you with grand gestures. It was because you knew they would be there. Their presence became predictable. Their care became dependable. Your soul longs for that same experience from you. It wants to know that your needs won't only matter when you've reached your breaking point. It wants to know that you'll nourish yourself before you're completely depleted, that you'll rest before you're exhausted, that you'll honor your body before it has to beg for your attention. One of the deepest forms of self love for this placement is becoming emotionally dependable to yourself, because your nervous system begins to relax when it no longer has to wonder whether you'll abandon your own needs tomorrow. Your soul doesn't need dramatic declarations of self worth, it needs evidence. It needs to experience over and over again that you are someone it can trust. Now, one of the main ways that you lose connection with yourself is by believing you have to earn rest before you're allowed to receive it. So, this means that you may find it surprisingly easy to work through exhaustion, ignore your body's signals, postpone your happiness, or convince yourself that you'll take care of yourself once everything else is finished. but somehow everything else is never finished. So your needs become tomorrow's responsibility, then next week, then next month. Another pattern that often develops with this placement is tying your sense of security to external circumstances instead of your relationship with yourself. So you may say to yourself, I'll relax once I have enough money. I'll finally enjoy life after I reach this goal. I'll finally feel safe enough once everything is under control. Now, those goals may absolutely matter, but your soul isn't actually searching for perfect circumstances. It's searching for inner stability. And there is an important difference. External security can disappear overnight. The relationship you build with yourself is what remains. The deeper wound with Taurus in the second house isn't a lack of self-worth. It's forgetting that your sense of safety was never supposed to depend entirely on what you own, produce, or accomplish. It was always meant to grow from knowing that no matter what happens around you, you won't stop caring for yourself. The way you care for yourself teaches other people how to care for you. So if you consistently ignore your own exhaustion, people are going to begin assuming you never need help. If you constantly settle for less than what nourishes you, life has very little reason to offer you more. If you rush through every meal, every conversation, every achievement, and every season of your life, you unconsciously teach yourself that your experiences exist to be completed rather than fully lived. The energy of this placement often shows up in surprisingly ordinary ways. So, you might delay buying something that would genuinely improve your daily life while spending freely on everyone else. You may struggle to receive compliments because you've become more comfortable giving than receiving. You may continue working long after your body has asked for a break because productivity feels more familiar than presence. And of course, over time, these choices become more than habits. They become evidence. Evidence your nervous system collects about how important you believe your own well being actually is. What's beautiful about Taurus in the second house is that your self worth doesn't grow through dramatic breakthroughs. It grows through ordinary acts of devotion repeated over time. So, making yourself a nourishing meal, keeping promises to yourself, creating a peaceful home, protecting your energy, choosing quality over urgency. Every small act quietly tells your soul you matter enough to be cared for today, not someday. Now, with this placement, your soul doesn't need a complete life overhaul. It needs to experience you as someone who consistently creates safety, nourishment, and steadiness from within. So, one of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself is first to stop waiting until you're empty to care for yourself. Your needs deserve your attention long before they become emergencies. So each morning, ask yourself, what would help me feel supported today? Then give yourself at least one of those things before your responsibilities begin. Next is to build rituals that remind your nervous system it's safe. Healing isn't only emotional, it's repetitive. So create one simple daily ritual that belongs only to you. So this could be a morning tea, an evening walk, or even 10 quiet minutes outside. And protect it as an appointment with yourself. Next is to practice receiving without explaining why you deserve it. Receiving can feel surprisingly vulnerable, especially if you spent years believing you had to earn everything first. So, the next time someone offers kindness, help, a compliment, or generosity, simply receive it. Resist the urge to immediately repay it, minimize it, or explain it away. Next is to choose what nourishes you, not just what occupies you. Being busy and being fulfilled are not the same thing. So take an honest look at your daily life and ask what genuinely restores me and what merely distracts me. Begin choosing restoration more intentionally. And finally, become a safe place for yourself. Your soul has spent your entire life hoping that one day you'll stop treating yourself like someone who always has to wait. So the next time that you're facing a difficult moment, ask yourself, if I deeply loved myself right now, how would I respond? Then become the person who gives yourself that response. Little by little, your soul begins believing, I'm finally home. A great affirmation for you having Taurus in your second house is, I create safety by consistently caring for myself. I no longer postpone my own peace because I am worthy of my love, my care, and my devotion today. What version of you are you stepping into after this video? Be sure to let me know in the comments. And if this gave you clarity, be sure to support this video with a like, share it with someone who's figuring things out as well, hype this video, and subscribe to stay connected to this type of energy. And there's only so much I can say here. So a one-on-one with me is where we make it specific to you. Plus, I offer over 10 different session styles to match exactly what you're moving through. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and book your session. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Gemini is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self love because you finally figured yourself out. It experiences self love because you continue showing genuine interest in who you're becoming. And that's an important distinction. Many people spend years believing that a healthy relationship with themselves means reaching a point where they're finally confident, certain, and completely secure in who they are. They imagine self love as a destination, a version of themselves they'll eventually arrive at once enough healing has happened. But your soul doesn't long to become a finished story. It longs to remain in conversation with itself. Gemini is curious by nature, but that curiosity isn't only meant for the outside world. It's also meant to be directed inward. Your soul wants you to keep asking questions about yourself, not in a way as if something is wrong with you, but more so because you are always becoming someone new. One of the ways that someone with Gemini in the second house abandons themselves is by assuming that they already know who they are. You may decide that you're just an anxious person, or bad with money, not confident, the responsible one, or just the creative one. And without realizing it, those labels become walls that keep you from noticing how much you've already changed. Your soul doesn't want to be placed inside a definition, it wants to be discovered over and over again. Real self love for Gemini in the second house isn't looking in the mirror and repeating affirmations until you believe them. It's becoming so interested in your own inner world that you never stop making space for new parts of yourself to emerge. Some of the greatest gifts, talents, dreams, and perspectives you'll ever develop don't exist in your awareness yet. And your soul hopes you'll remain curious long enough to meet them. One of the greatest temptations for this placement is allowing other people's opinions to become louder than your own inner dialogue. Gemini naturally gathers information. It listens, observes, compares perspectives, and enjoys understanding how different people think. That openness is one of your greatest strengths, but it can also become one of your greatest blind spots. There may be moments when you trust everyone else's interpretation of your life more than your own. You ask 5 people for advice before making a decision. You consume endless podcasts, books, videos, and opinions, hoping someone else will finally tell you the right answer. You become so committed to collecting perspectives that you lose contact with your own. And the irony is that you aren't actually looking for more information. You're looking for permission to trust yourself. Another way this placement loses its sense of worth is by believing that every version of yourself has to make sense to everyone around you. You may feel pressure to explain why you've changed careers, why your interests have shifted, why you're walking away from something you once loved, or why you're becoming someone your old life no longer recognizes. But of course, growth rarely looks logical while you're living it. Sometimes your soul changes direction long before your mind has words for why. For you, self love begins the moment you stop treating your evolution like something you have to defend. Your life is allowed to become different because you've become different. That doesn't make you inconsistent, it makes you alive. Now, the relationship you have with your own voice shapes every area of your life. If you constantly dismiss your own thoughts, you'll begin waiting for other people to validate ideas you already had. If you speak with hesitation, people may mistake your humility for uncertainty. Or, if you believe your perspective only matters after you've become an expert, you'll spend years withholding gifts that were already capable of helping someone. Now, what's interesting about Gemini in the second house is that your value often isn't found in having the best answers. It's found in asking the questions that everyone else overlooked. You have a gift for helping people think differently, for noticing connections others miss, for putting language to experiences that have been difficult to explain, or for introducing an idea that shifts the direction of an entire conversation. But because these gifts come so naturally to you, you may assume they're ordinary. You underestimate your observations because they don't feel extraordinary from the inside. You forget that what's obvious to you may be exactly what someone else has been searching for. This placement can also shape your career and finances in surprising ways. So, you may undercharge because you think you need one more certification. You may postpone sharing your work because it's still evolving. And you may keep rewriting, refining, researching, and preparing while someone with half your knowledge confidently steps into the opportunity you were waiting for, simply because they trusted what they already knew. One of the greatest acts of self love for Gemini in the second house is allowing your voice to have value before it feels complete. Your soul isn't asking you to become the smartest person in the room. It's asking you to stop withholding yourself until you believe you've earned the right to be heard. Your soul doesn't need more information. It needs a deeper relationship with its own voice. The goal isn't to stop learning. It's to stop believing that every answer lives somewhere outside of you. Now, some of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself is first to become curious about yourself instead of critical of yourself. Your relationship with you should feel like discovery and not interrogation. So the next time you catch yourself asking, "What's wrong with me?" replace it with, "What is this experience trying to teach me about myself?" The quality of the questions you ask yourself will shape the quality of your self relationship. Next is to trust your perspective before you collect everyone else's. There is wisdom in seeking advice, but there is also wisdom in hearing yourself first. So the next time you're making an important decision, write down your own answer before asking anyone else for theirs. Give your own inner voice the opportunity to speak first. Next is to let yourself outgrow old identities. You don't owe lifelong loyalty to versions of yourself that no longer fit. So finish this sentence in your journal. I've been giving myself permission to become someone who, and let the answer surprise you. Next is to stop waiting until you feel like an expert. Your voice becomes stronger by being used, not by being hidden. So share an idea, create something, start the project, or have the conversation you've been postponing because you thought you needed to know more first. Your willingness to begin is often more valuable than another month of preparation. And finally, keep falling in love with your own mind. One of the deepest forms of self love for this placement is remaining fascinated by your own growth. So spend time every week exploring something that genuinely lights up your curiosity. And don't do it because it's productive, profitable, or impressive. Do it because it reminds your soul that life is still unfolding. Your curiosity isn't a distraction from your path. Very often, it is the path. A great affirmation for you having Gemini in your second house is, I trust my own voice, honor my own growth, and give myself permission to keep becoming. The more deeply I know myself, the more naturally I recognize my own worth. What part of this are you still avoiding in your real life? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And if this brought you clarity that you didn't have before, be sure to hit like, share this video, hype this video, and subscribe to stay connected to this kind of energy. And if you know you're meant for more, but can't quite access it yet, a one-on-one with me will help you step into that version of yourself with clarity and direction. Plus, I offer over 10 different session styles to match what you actually need. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and book. If Cancer is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self love because you've become stronger than your emotions. It experiences self love because you stop treating your emotions like they're a problem that needs to be fixed. One of the greatest misunderstandings about self love is believing it's about becoming emotionally unshakable. Your soul isn't asking you to become less sensitive. It's asking you to stop apologizing for your sensitivity. Cancer is often described as emotional, nurturing, and deeply intuitive. But underneath those qualities is something more profound. Cancer understands that emotions are not interruptions to life, they're information. They're the language through which your inner world tells you what feels safe, what feels threatening, what needs attention, and what needs healing. When Cancer sits in the second house, your relationship with yourself is deeply influenced by how you respond to your own emotional experience. Do you immediately try to explain your feelings away? Do you tell yourself you're overreacting? Do you become frustrated with yourself for still being hurt by something that happened months or even years ago? Or do you make room for your emotions without immediately trying to change them? Your soul doesn't measure self love by how quickly you get over things. It measures self love by whether your emotions feel welcome in your own presence. There's a part of you that simply wants to know that when life becomes painful, overwhelming, or uncertain, you won't abandon yourself the way other people may have. Your soul longs to experience you as someone who stays, someone who listens, and someone who comforts instead of criticizes. Because the deepest form of nourishment for Cancer in the second house isn't external reassurance. It's becoming emotionally safe for yourself. One of the ways that you disconnect from yourself is by becoming everyone else's emotional home while quietly leaving yourself emotionally homeless. You may naturally notice when someone is hurting. You remember what people tell you. You anticipate their needs. You check in. You comfort. You hold space. You become the person everyone feels safe with. But throughout this time, you may have learned that your own emotions were somehow less important than everyone else's. So you may have become the caretaker in your family, the peacemaker, the emotionally immature one, the dependable one, the one who didn't want to create more problems for people who were already struggling. Or maybe you simply learned that your emotions were too inconvenient, too dramatic, too sensitive, or too difficult for the people around you to hold. So you, in turn, became incredibly skilled at holding everyone else. The problem is that emotional generosity without emotional reciprocity slowly becomes emotional depletion. You begin giving yourself away in ways that don't look like sacrifice at first. You stop checking in with yourself because you're so busy checking in with everyone else. You become so practiced at asking, "How are you?" that you forget to ask yourself the same question. Your soul doesn't lose its worth because it cares deeply. It loses connection with itself whenever it believes that compassion should only flow outward. The way you respond to your own emotions teaches other people how to respond to them too. If you constantly minimize your feelings, people may begin assuming they aren't significant. If you tell everyone you're fine before you've even checked whether you actually are, people will often believe you. If you continue showing up for everyone else while silently running on empty, the people around you may never realize you've been longing for someone to ask how you're really doing. This placement often shows up in very subtle but life changing ways. So, you may stay in relationships longer than your heart wants to because you're more focused on understanding the other person's pain than honoring your own. You may undercharge for your work because you don't want to burden people financially, even when it comes at your own expense. Or you may overextend yourself, overgive, and overfunction until resentment replaces the love that inspired your generosity in the first place. What's fascinating about Cancer in the second house is that your self worth is often revealed through the way you receive, not just the way you give. So, can you receive help without guilt? Can you receive rest without feeling lazy? Can you receive love without feeling like you have to immediately earn it back? Can you allow someone to care for you without instinctively becoming the caretaker again? The relationship you have with receiving often reveals the relationship you have with yourself. Because every time you allow yourself to be nurtured, you're quietly telling your soul, "I deserve care too." Now, your soul doesn't need you to become less caring. It simply needs your care to include you. Real self love for Cancer in the second house begins when you stop treating your own emotional needs like they're always the most negotiable part of your day. Some of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself is first to become a safe place for your own emotions. You don't need to immediately solve every feeling that you have. Sometimes your emotions simply need to be witnessed. So the next time you're feeling overwhelmed, resist the urge to immediately distract yourself or explain your emotions away. Instead, ask, what am I feeling and what might this feeling need from me? Listen before you fix. Next is to give yourself the care you freely give others. Your soul notices the difference between what you offer yourself and what you offer everyone else. So think about the way you comfort someone you love when they're struggling. Then intentionally offer yourself that same patience, kindness, and understanding this week. Next is to practice receiving without feeling indebted. Receiving is not selfish, it's part of healthy emotional balance. So the next time someone offers support, encouragement, or help, allow yourself to simply receive it. Notice any discomfort that may arise without judging it. Next is to check in with yourself before you check in with everyone else. Your emotional world deserves your attention too. So before responding to everyone else's needs, each morning spend 5 quiet minutes asking yourself, how am I really doing today? Let your answer shape at least one decision you make that day. And finally, let your needs become visible to you. You don't have to wait until you're emotionally exhausted before your needs become valid. So at the end of each day, ask yourself, where did I abandon myself today? And where did I stay with myself? Over time, you'll begin recognizing that self-love isn't one big decision. It's hundreds of small moments where you choose not to leave yourself behind. A great affirmation for you having Cancer in your second house is, I offer myself the same love, compassion, and care that I so freely give to others. My emotions are worthy of my attention, and I am safe to nurture myself with the same devotion I give the world. Where did your perspective shift while listening to this? Let's chat about it in the comments. And if this actually moves something in you, be sure to tap like, hype this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for what's next. And if you felt seen here, a one-on-one is where we take that surface recognition and turn it into real personalized guidance. One session with me can shift how you see your entire life. Plus, I have over 10 session styles that you can customize to whatever you're working through. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and book your session. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Leo is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self-love because the world finally recognizes your gifts. It experiences self-love because you recognize them first. This placement is often misunderstood because Leo is quickly associated with attention, praise, or being seen. While external recognition may feel meaningful, it isn't what your soul is actually searching for. Your soul isn't asking for applause. It's asking for acknowledgement. And there is a profound difference. Applause comes from the outside. Acknowledgement comes from within. One disappears the moment the audience leaves. The other becomes the foundation of how you move through your entire life. Your soul wants to know that you'll notice your own growth before waiting for someone else to point it out. That you'll celebrate your own victories before wondering whether anyone else cares. That you'll recognize your own beauty, creativity, intelligence, kindness, leadership, and resilience before looking around the room to see if anyone else agrees. Because what often happens with this placement is you become incredibly generous with encouragement. You notice other people's gifts. You compliment them. You cheer them on. You remind them of what makes them extraordinary. But when it comes to yourself, your standards quietly become impossible. You tell yourself you'll finally be proud when you've accomplished a little more. You'll finally celebrate once you've reached the next milestone. You'll finally slow down long enough to appreciate yourself after you've earned it. And the finish line keeps moving. Your soul isn't asking you to think you're better than anyone else. It's asking you to stop living as though everyone else's light is easier to recognize than your own. One of the deepest forms of self love for Leo in the second house is becoming someone who witnesses their own life with admiration instead of constant evaluation. Because the relationship you're building with yourself should not feel like an endless performance review. It should feel like coming home to someone who already sees your light. One of the quietest ways you disconnect from yourself is by confusing achievement with appreciation. You may believe that you're honoring yourself by constantly striving for more, working harder, creating more, accomplishing more, improving more. But sometimes that endless striving is communicating something very different to your soul. It says, who I am today isn't enough. Now, you may not consciously believe that, but your actions can begin telling that story. Another pattern that often develops with this placement is becoming deeply uncomfortable receiving recognition. Ironically, many people with Leo in the second house crave being seen while simultaneously struggling to let themselves fully receive appreciation. So, someone compliments your work and you immediately point out everything you could have done better. Someone celebrates your success and you quickly shift the conversation somewhere else. Or someone tells you they admire you, and your first instinct is to explain why they shouldn't. Why is that? Because somewhere during this timeline, you may have learned that acknowledging your own gifts looked arrogant, that being proud of yourself meant you were full of yourself, that confidence made other people uncomfortable. So instead of shining naturally, you learn to dim yourself just enough to make everyone else feel comfortable. And the tragedy is that your soul doesn't experience humility through self dismissal, it experiences grief. Because every time you minimize your own light, you unintentionally teach yourself that your gifts are safest when they're hidden. The way you acknowledge yourself teaches the world how to acknowledge you. So if you constantly dismiss your accomplishments, people eventually will stop celebrating them with you. If you shrink your ideas before sharing them, opportunities often pass without ever realizing they were welcomed by you. If you instinctively hand credit to everyone else while refusing to receive any yourself, people may begin overlooking the very contributions that make you invaluable. This placement often appears in surprisingly subtle ways. So you may hesitate to raise your prices because you don't want to seem overly confident. You may avoid talking about your accomplishments because you fear being misunderstood. Or you may downplay your talents by saying, it wasn't that hard. Anyone could do it. I just got lucky. Meanwhile, those same talents are changing people's lives. The fascinating thing about Leo in the second house is that your relationship with your gifts becomes your relationship with abundance. When you treat your gifts as ordinary, you often struggle to receive extraordinary opportunities. When you begin honoring what you've been given instead of minimizing it, your relationship with your career, your money, your creativity, and your confidence naturally begins to change. And it won't be because the world suddenly values you more. It's going to be because you finally stopped asking it to decide your value for you. Your soul doesn't need more applause. It needs more appreciation from the one person whose opinion has always mattered most, which is you. Some of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself, having Leo in your second house, is first, become someone who notices your own light. You shouldn't have to wait for someone else to tell you what makes you remarkable. So at the end of each day, write down one thing you genuinely appreciate about yourself. Not what you've accomplished, who you were. Your courage, your kindness, your creativity, your resilience. Learn to become your own witness. Next is to let yourself receive recognition fully. Receiving appreciation is not arrogance, it's openness. So the next time someone compliments you, resist the urge to minimize it. Simply say, "Thank you." Then allow yourself to believe they might actually mean it. Next is to celebrate progress before perfection. Your soul deserves acknowledgement throughout the journey, not only at the finish line. Choose one goal you're currently working toward and intentionally celebrate how far you've already come instead of focusing only on how far you have left to go. Next is to stop treating your gifts like they're ordinary. What comes naturally to you may be extraordinary to someone else. So write down 5 qualities or talents you've spent years minimizing. Then ask yourself, what if these aren't things I should hide, but things I'm meant to share? And finally, let your life reflect the value you already carry. Self love isn't convincing yourself that you're worthy, it's making choices that reflect the worth that's already there. The next time you're making a decision, ask yourself, if I genuinely believed my gifts deserve to take up space, what would I choose? Then have the courage to choose from that place. A great affirmation for you having Leo in the second house is, I no longer wait for the world to recognize what I already know within myself. I honor my gifts, celebrate my light, and allow myself to take up space with confidence, gratitude, and authenticity. Where did this hit something you've been quietly carrying? Let's talk about it in the comments. And be sure to tap like if you felt called out in a good way. Pass this on to your friends, hype this video, and subscribe to keep growing with me. And if you know you're meant to be seen, but something in you still freezes every time it's time to fully show up, my visibility reset was made for you. It's part emotional reset audio guidance and part visibility activations designed to help you release the fear of being seen, stop hiding behind overthinking and procrastination, and finally feel safe stepping into your light. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and get started. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Virgo is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self love because you finally become the best version of yourself. It experiences self love when you stop treating yourself like a project that constantly needs improvement. This is one of the greatest misconceptions about Virgo. Virgo is often described as the sign of perfectionism, productivity, or fixing what's broken. Now, while there's truth in those themes, I think they miss something much deeper. Virgo doesn't improve things because it believes they're worthless. It improves things because it cares. Think about someone tending a garden. They water it, prune it, pull the weeds, protect it. They're not doing this because they dislike the garden. They're doing this because they love it enough to care for it. However, many people with Virgo in the second house unknowingly reverse that relationship. Instead of caring for themselves because they love themselves, they begin believing they'll finally deserve love once they've improved themselves enough. That shift changes everything. Suddenly, every mistake becomes evidence that you're falling behind. Every weakness becomes something to eliminate. Every flaw becomes another item on an invisible checklist. And without realizing it, you begin relating to yourself less like a human being and more like a lifelong renovation project. Your soul doesn't experience that as devotion. It experiences it as conditional acceptance. The deepest form of self love for Virgo in the second house isn't abandoning growth. Your soul genuinely loves growth. It loves learning, it loves refining, and it loves becoming wiser. But it longs for you to grow from a place of affection instead of inadequacy. Because there's a huge difference between saying, I want to care for myself and I need to fix myself before I'm worthy of care. One leads to peace, the other guarantees you'll never quite feel finished. Now, one of the ways that you disconnect from yourself is by making your worth dependent on your usefulness. So you may not consciously think, I only deserve love when I'm helping, but your life may begin reflecting that belief. You feel valuable when you're solving problems, when you're supporting someone, when you're being productive, when you're making someone else's life easier, when you're carrying responsibilities that nobody asked you to carry. And when you're resting, you may feel guilty. When you're doing nothing, you may feel like you're wasting time. When someone offers to help you, you may instinctively respond, it's okay, I've got it. And you're not saying this because you actually do. It's more so because receiving can feel more uncomfortable than giving. So, of course, over time, your identity becomes deeply intertwined with being dependable. You become the person everyone counts on, the person who remembers the details, the person who notices what everyone else overlooked, the person who quietly holds everything together. But here's the question your soul eventually asks: who are you when no one needs anything from you? Can you still recognize your worth on a day when you accomplish nothing? Can you still respect yourself when you're the one who needs support? Can you still believe you are valuable simply because you exist? For Virgo in the second house, those questions often become the doorway to genuine self love because your soul was never asking you to earn your place through usefulness. It's been asking you to recognize that your presence has value long before your productivity does. The standards you hold yourself to often become the standards you assume everyone else expects from you. If you're constantly criticizing yourself before anyone else has a chance to, you'll often struggle to believe compliments when they arrive. If you immediately focus on what could have been better instead of appreciating what went well, achievement begins feeling empty. There's always another mountain, another improvement, another correction, another reason to postpone feeling proud. This placement often shows up in subtle ways that people around you may never notice. So you may apologize before you've done anything wrong. You may spend hours perfecting something that someone else would have happily finished in half the time. You could hesitate to put your work into the world because you can still see everything you'd like to improve. Or you delay celebrating your progress because you're already focused on the next goal. Over time, of course, this becomes more than a habit. It becomes the emotional atmosphere you live inside, one where nothing is ever quite enough. What's interesting is that other people often experience you very differently than you experience yourself. They admire your wisdom, your reliability, your attention to detail, your integrity, your thoughtfulness. Meanwhile, you're wondering why you still don't feel good enough. Your soul doesn't need another accomplishment. It needs permission to stop moving the finish line. Your soul doesn't need you to lower your standards. It simply needs your compassion to grow at the same rate your expectations have. Real self love for Virgo in the second house begins when your inner voice becomes as supportive as your work ethic. Now, some of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself is first to speak to yourself like someone you're responsible for caring for. The person you spend the most time with is yourself. Your inner dialogue should reflect that relationship. So the next time you make a mistake, ask yourself, would I speak to someone I love this way? If the answer is no, choose different words. Next is to let your progress count. Growth deserves to be acknowledged before it's complete. So at the end of each week, write down 3 things you've done well before writing down anything you'd like to improve. Train your mind to notice evidence of growth, not only evidence of what's unfinished. Next is to practice being instead of constantly improving. Your soul needs experiences that aren't measured by productivity. So spend 1 hour this week doing something that serves no purpose except bringing you joy. Notice how quickly your mind tries to justify why you should be doing something else. Then gently return to the moment. Next is to receive care without feeling like you have to earn it. Being supported is not a reward for exhaustion. It's part of being human. The next time someone offers help, pause before automatically saying no. Allow yourself to experience what it feels like to be cared for without immediately trying to repay it. And finally, stop confusing refinement with rejection. There's nothing wrong with wanting to grow, but growth should never require you to reject who you are today. So ask yourself, what part of myself have I been trying to fix that actually needs acceptance before it needs improvement? That answer may change the way you relate to yourself forever. A great affirmation for you having Virgo in your second house is, I care for myself with the same patience, compassion, and devotion that I offer everyone else. My worth is not measured by perfection, productivity, or performance. I am already worthy, and from that place, I choose to grow. If I just exposed a pattern you've been in, say it out loud in the comments and let me know. And of course, your 3-second ritual: like this video, share this video, hype this video, and subscribe to keep this energy coming your way. And if you feel like you've outgrown where you are, but don't understand what comes next, a one-on-one with me will help you understand exactly what's shifting and why. Plus, I have over 10 session types you can customize to whatever you're working through. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and get started. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Libra is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self-love because everyone approves of you. It experiences self-love because you stop needing your reflection to come from someone else's eyes. This is one of the greatest misunderstandings about Libra. People often assume Libra is simply seeking love, relationships, or harmony. But beneath all of those themes is something more personal. Libra is searching for relationship because relationship reflects something back to us. It helps us see ourselves. It teaches us who we are. It reveals the parts of ourselves that we couldn't have discovered alone. When Libra falls into the second house, however, there is a lifelong invitation to ask a much deeper question. Can I see my own value before someone else reflects it back to me? That's where your soul longs to meet you. Because one of the easiest ways this placement abandons itself is by allowing other people's responses to become the mirror through which it measures its own worth. If someone appreciates you, you feel valuable. If someone misunderstands you, you begin questioning yourself. If someone chooses you, you feel secure. If someone pulls away, you may wonder what suddenly became wrong with you. Without realizing it, your sense of self begins rising and falling with the emotional weather of other people's opinions. Your soul doesn't want you to stop caring about people. Connection will always matter to you. It wants you to become someone whose relationship with yourself remains steady, even when someone else's perception changes. Because the truth is, People are always seeing you through the lens of their own experiences, fears, expectations, and projections. So if you build your self worth on someone else's perception, you'll spend your life standing on constantly shifting ground. And your soul longs for something much more stable. It wants to become the mirror you've been searching for in everyone else. Now, one of the ways that you disconnect from yourself is by becoming so skilled at understanding everyone else's perspective that you slowly lose contact with your own. This placement often creates beautifully compassionate people. You naturally see multiple sides. You understand why someone behaved the way they did. You notice what they're feeling beneath their words. You recognize the complexity of human relationships. And of course, these are remarkable gifts, but every gift has a shadow when it isn't balanced. So you may spend so much energy making sure everyone else feels comfortable that you never stop to ask yourself whether you're comfortable. You become so practiced at reading the room that you stop reading yourself. You become so focused on preserving harmony that you begin confusing peace with self abandonment. Maybe you've stayed quiet because speaking honestly felt too disruptive. Or maybe you've accepted less than you truly wanted because asking for more felt selfish. Or even you've become the easygoing one, the agreeable one, the understanding one, while quietly grieving all the parts of yourself that never felt fully expressed. Your soul doesn't experience self love when you are endlessly accommodating. It experiences self love when your kindness includes you. Because every relationship that asks you to disappear in order to keep it peaceful is asking you to pay for connection with your authenticity. And that price is always too high. The relationship you have with your own voice shapes the relationships you create. So if you constantly defer to everyone else's preferences, people assume that you genuinely don't have any of your own. If you apologize for your needs before you've even expressed them, others may never realize how rarely you've asked for anything. And if you constantly seek reassurance before trusting yourself, you slowly teach your nervous system that someone else's opinion carries more authority than your own. The energy of this placement usually shows up in surprisingly subtle ways. So you may ask, what do you want to do? Before asking yourself what you actually want. You could hesitate before making decisions because you're worried about disappointing someone. You overthink text messages, conversations, and interactions, wondering if you've somehow been misunderstood. Or you may wait for someone else's encouragement before pursuing an opportunity you already knew you wanted. Over time, these moments accumulate. And it's not because they are dramatic, it's because they're repetitive. Every small act of self dismissal reinforces the belief that your own perspective should always come second. What's interesting about this placement is that your relationships often improve the moment your relationship with yourself becomes more honest. because people don't actually feel closer to the version of you that's constantly adapting. They feel closer to the version of you they can genuinely know. Your authenticity creates deeper intimacy than your agreeableness ever could. Your soul doesn't need you to become less loving. It simply needs you to stop placing yourself outside the circle of your own compassion. Self love for Libra in the second house begins when you realize that honoring yourself doesn't threaten your relationships, it strengthens the right ones. Now, some of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself is to first become your own first point of reference. Before asking what everyone else thinks, pause long enough to hear yourself. So the next time you're making a decision, ask yourself, what feels true for me? Then write down your answer before inviting anyone else's opinion into the conversation. Next is to let honesty become more important than harmony. Real harmony isn't built on silence, it's built on truth. So practice expressing one honest preference this week without softening it to make it easier for someone else to accept. Notice that honesty doesn't automatically create conflict. Next, stop looking for yourself in other people's reflections. Compliments are beautiful. So is criticism. Neither one defines you. At the end of each day, write down one quality you appreciated about yourself that had nothing to do with anyone else's response to you. Learn to become your own witness. Next, practice choosing yourself in small ways. Self trust isn't built through one dramatic decision, it's built through hundreds of ordinary ones. So choose one small thing this week simply because you wanted it, not because it was practical, not because everyone agreed, and not because it kept the peace. Choose it because it was true for you. And finally, let your relationships reflect your authenticity, not your performance. The people who are meant to know you cannot know a version of you that you're constantly editing. So ask yourself, where have I been performing harmony instead of living honestly? Choose one relationship where you'll begin showing up more authentically. Not perfectly, just truthfully. A great affirmation for you having Libra in the second house is, I no longer measure my worth through someone else's reflection. I honor my own voice, trust my own heart, and allow my relationship with myself to become the foundation for every other relationship in my life. Help this video to reach who it's supposed to. So be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, hype this video, and subscribe so the universe and the algorithm keep delivering. And if you've been hiding behind perfectionism, overthinking, staying prepared, or waiting until you feel more confident first, my visibility reset was made for you. It's part emotional reset audio guidance and part visibility activations designed to help you finally feel safe enough to be fully seen. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and get started. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Scorpio is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self love because you finally learned to protect yourself from getting hurt. It experiences self love because you stop believing you have to. This placement is often misunderstood because Scorpio is associated with intensity, secrecy, and emotional depth. But beneath all of those qualities is one of the most vulnerable signs in the zodiac. Scorpio doesn't guard itself because it doesn't want love. It guards itself because what it loves completely. That's why betrayal, rejection, abandonment, and loss often leave such a profound imprint on the Scorpio psyche. It isn't simply the event that hurts, it's what the event teaches you to believe about yourself afterward. When Scorpio falls in the second house, your relationship with yourself can slowly become shaped by one question. If I let my guard down, will I lose myself? That question has the power to influence almost every area of your life. How deeply you trust, how honestly you express yourself, how much help you allow yourself to receive, how much of your heart you let people see, even how much success, love, happiness, or abundance you allow yourself to experience before wondering when it's going to disappear. Your soul doesn't long for a life where nothing painful ever happens. It wants to know that no matter what happens, you won't abandon yourself trying to survive it. Because one of the deepest forms of self love for Scorpio in the second house is realizing that your worth is not determined by what you've survived. Your worth is revealed by the relationship you maintain with yourself after survival is no longer necessary. There comes a point where your soul gently asks, can we stop living like we're still in the storm? One of the most subtle ways you disconnect from yourself is by believing that vulnerability automatically creates danger. You may not consciously think this. In fact, you may genuinely want deeper relationships, greater abundance, or a more peaceful life. But your nervous system can tell a completely different story. It remembers the moments when trust was broken, when someone used your openness against you, when something you thought was permanent suddenly disappeared, when you had to rebuild yourself from the ground up. Without realizing it, you begin creating a life that's emotionally prepared for loss before loss has even arrived. You become highly self reliant. You keep parts of yourself private. You tell yourself, I'll handle it myself. I don't need anyone. It's safer if I don't expect too much. Those strategies may have once protected you, but they were never meant to become your permanent identity. The wound with Scorpio in the second house isn't that life hurt you, it's that pain slowly convinced you that your safest relationship was the one where you needed the fewest people and expected the least from life. Your soul doesn't experience that as strength, it experiences it as loneliness. Because real strength isn't never needing anyone. Real strength is knowing you'll remain loyal to yourself, even if life asks you to begin again. The relationship you have with trust shapes everything you allow yourself to receive. If you expect people to leave, you may hesitate to become fully known. If you expect opportunities to disappear, you may struggle to fully enjoy your success. If you believe love always comes with loss, you may unconsciously keep one foot outside the relationship. The energy of this placement often appears in ways that are incredibly subtle. So you may test people before trusting them. You hesitate to celebrate too early because you're waiting for something to go wrong. You keep your biggest dreams private until they feel guaranteed. You hold on to control because uncertainty feels too vulnerable. Or you may even reject opportunities before they've had the chance to reject you because disappointment feels familiar. What's fascinating about Scorpio in the second house is that your self worth isn't only reflected in what you protect, it's reflected in what you allow yourself to receive. So, can you receive love without preparing for loss? Can you receive success without expecting it to disappear? Can you receive joy without waiting for the other shoe to drop? Can you receive peace without wondering how long it will last? Those questions reveal far more about your relationship with yourself than any affirmation ever could. Because every time you allow yourself to fully experience something beautiful without emotionally bracing for its ending, you tell your soul, it is safe to live in this moment. Your soul doesn't need more control. It needs more evidence that you will stay beside yourself no matter what life brings. Self-love for Scorpio in the second house isn't convincing yourself that you'll never be hurt again. It's trusting that you are no longer someone who will disappear when you are. Some of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself is to first stop measuring safety by control. Control often creates the illusion of safety while creating exhaustion. So, notice one area of your life where you've been trying to control every possible outcome and ask yourself, what would trust look like here? Not blind trust in other people, trust in yourself. Next is to let yourself experience joy without predicting its ending. Your nervous system deserves to experience peace without immediately preparing for pain. So the next time something wonderful happens, resist the urge to ask, how long will this last? Instead, ask, how deeply can I allow myself to experience this moment? Next is to become someone who doesn't abandon yourself during pain. Your greatest security isn't avoiding heartbreak. It's in knowing that you'll remain with yourself through it. So I suggest that you write yourself a letter beginning with these words. No matter what happens next, I promise I will. Finish the sentence with the commitment you want your soul to trust. Next is to practice receiving without bracing. Love, abundance, success, and support don't always arrive with a hidden cost. So the next time life offers you something beautiful, notice whether your first instinct is gratitude or suspicion. If it's suspicion, gently remind yourself this moment doesn't need to earn my trust before I experience it. And finally, let survival become your past, not your identity. You are more than the hardest thing you've ever lived through. So ask yourself, who am I becoming now that I don't have to spend all my energy surviving? Spend time with that question. Your future self already knows the answer. A great affirmation for you having Scorpio in your second house is I no longer define myself by what I've survived. I trust myself to remain by my own side through every season of life. And I allow myself to receive love, peace, and abundance without fear. Help this video reach who it's supposed to, so be sure to hit like, share this video with your friends, hype this video, and subscribe so the universe and the algorithm keep delivering. And if you feel like you've outgrown where you are, but don't know what comes next, a one-on-one with me will help you understand exactly what's shifting and why. Plus, I have over 10 different session styles that you can customize to whatever you're working through. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and get started. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Sagittarius is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self-love because you've finally arrived. It experiences self-love because you never stop expanding. This placement is often reduced to adventure, travel, or optimism. But I think this goes deeper. Having Sagittarius in your second house means that your soul longs to know that life will never become too small for who you're becoming. There's a part of you that instinctively knows you're not meant to spend your life repeating the same emotional patterns, living inside the same limitations, or becoming trapped by a single chapter of your story. Your soul doesn't just crave freedom from the outside world. It craves freedom from the identities you've outgrown. That's why one of the deepest forms of self-love for Sagittarius in the second house is giving yourself permission to become someone your past could never have predicted. Your worth was never meant to be built on who you've been. It grows through who you're willing to become. And many people unknowingly build their identity around the version of themselves that survived difficult seasons. The version of them that struggled, the version that stayed small, the version that settled because it felt safer than risking disappointment. But through all of this, your soul is asking a different question. At what point do you stop introducing yourself through your history and start introducing yourself through your potential? Self-love for this placement is deeply connected to possibility, not fantasy. Your soul feels nourished every time you choose growth over limitation, curiosity over certainty, and expansion over fear. Now, one of the most slick ways that you disconnect from yourself is by shrinking your vision to fit your current circumstances. And this doesn't usually happen all at once. This happens gradually, where life disappoints you, plans don't work out, people project their fears onto your dreams, your responsibilities increase. You begin hearing phrases like, be realistic, don't expect too much, or maybe that's just not meant for you. Another way this placement loses itself is by believing that freedom always exists somewhere else. So you may tell yourself, once I move, once I quit this job, once I make more money, once I find the right opportunity, then I'll finally feel like myself. Now, with this placement, external change can absolutely be part of your journey, but your soul isn't asking you to spend your life chasing the next horizon. It's asking you to remember that expansion is first an internal experience. You can carry a limited mindset all around the world, or you can develop an expansive one before your circumstances ever change. So, your soul isn't necessarily searching for a bigger life, it's searching for a bigger relationship with what's possible. The size of your self worth determines the size of the life you allow yourself to imagine. If you secretly believe your dreams are unrealistic, you will often edit them before anyone else has the chance to hear them. If you assume opportunities belong to other people, you'll hesitate before applying, speaking up, or taking the leap. Or even if you believe your best years are behind you, you'll unconsciously stop looking for new doors before realizing they're still open. This placement often reveals itself through your relationship with possibility. Do you immediately see what's available, or do you immediately see what's impossible? Do you naturally ask, why not me? Or who am I to think I could? These types of questions shape everything from your finances to your career, your relationships, your creativity, and your willingness to take meaningful risk. Now, what's interesting about Sagittarius in the second house is that your self worth isn't just reflected in what you currently have, it's reflected in what you believe you're worthy of pursuing. Because every dream you quietly dismiss teaches your soul something, and every dream you courageously honor teaches it something else. The relationship you have with possibility becomes the relationship you have with yourself. Now, your soul doesn't need you to become more optimistic. It needs you to stop making your world smaller every time life disappoints you. Self love for Sagittarius in the second house begins when you become someone who refuses to let temporary circumstances define permanent beliefs about yourself. Now, some of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself with this placement is to first protect your sense of possibility. Hope is not naive, it's one of your soul's greatest resources. So, notice where you've started calling something impossible when what you really mean is, I'm afraid it won't happen. Those are not the same thing. Next is to stop introducing yourself through old chapters. You are allowed to outgrow the story you've been telling about yourself. So, finish this sentence. The version of me I've been introducing people to is, then ask, who am I becoming now? Next is to feed your soul with expansion. Your spirit doesn't thrive inside emotional confinement, it needs fresh perspectives. So, read something that challenges your worldview. Visit a place you've never been. Learn about a culture, philosophy, or idea that's completely unfamiliar. Expansion is nourishment for your soul. Next is to speak about your dreams like they belong to you. So this means stop whispering your biggest vision because you're afraid someone else won't understand it. So share one dream you've been minimizing. And this is not to convince anyone, but it's to simply hear yourself say it out loud without apologizing for its size. And finally, become someone who expects life to keep unfolding. Your future should remain bigger than your past. So ask yourself, if I genuinely believed life was still expanding for me, what decision would I make today? Then let that answer become your next step. A great affirmation for you having Sagittarius in your second house is, I honor the limitless potential within me. I refuse to let fear, disappointment, or my past define what is possible for my future. My soul was created to keep expanding, and I trust myself to grow into the life that is calling me. What did this confirm that you already knew deep down? Drop it in the comments below and let me know about it. And help this video reach who it's supposed to. So be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, hype this video, and subscribe so that the universe and the algorithm keep delivering. And if you know you have more inside of you, but still struggle to consistently show up, my visibility reset helps you to get to the root of what's actually blocking you. Through audio guidance, visibility activations, and emotional healing exercises, this experience helps you to release the fear of being seen and reconnect with your voice, confidence, and expression. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and get started. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Capricorn is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self-love because you've finally accomplished enough. It experiences self-love because you stop treating your existence like something that has to be justified. Capricorn energy is often described as ambitious, disciplined, and hardworking. But I think those descriptions only scratch the surface. At its core, Capricorn is deeply concerned with responsibility. It wants to build something that lasts. It wants its life to matter. It wants to know that the time it's been given is being used wisely. And of course, those are beautiful qualities. But when they quietly become the foundation of your self worth, something begins to shift. Instead of asking, what kind of life do I want to build? You begin asking, have I done enough to deserve my place here? And that's a much heavier question. Many with Capricorn in their second house unknowingly carry the feeling that they should always be doing something productive. Even moments of rest can feel uncomfortable because there's a quiet voice reminding you of everything that still needs to be accomplished. So your calendar may be full, your responsibilities may multiply, and your goals may continue expanding, but yet there's still a lingering feeling that you haven't done enough. And of course, we know this is not because you are lazy, more so because the finish line keeps moving. Your soul doesn't need another achievement to finally believe it's worthy. It needs to experience a version of you that knows your value existed before your resume did, before your promotions, before your accomplishments, before your income, before your responsibilities, long before you proved yourself to anyone. And one of the deepest forms of self love for Capricorn in the second house is allowing yourself to believe that your worth is something you carry into your work, not something you earn from it. One of the quietest ways that you disconnect from yourself is by becoming more loyal to your responsibilities than you are to your own humanity. So you may have become incredibly dependable. People trust you, they rely on you, they know you'll show up. You become the one who handles the difficult conversations, solves the problems, and carries the weight that other people put down. Over time, being needed can begin to feel similar to being loved. And this is not because you consciously believe those things are the same, but because your nervous system has spent years receiving appreciation through what you provide rather than through who you are. And that belief can shape your entire life. Where you struggle to slow down because rest feels undeserved. You hesitate to celebrate because there's always another goal waiting. You instinctively take on more because saying no feels irresponsible. Or you may even feel guilty when life becomes easier, as though struggle has become part of your identity. But your soul doesn't experience constant pressure as devotion. It experiences it as distance. Because every time your productivity becomes more important than your presence, you slowly stop relating to yourself as a person and you begin relating to yourself as a performance. And no relationship can thrive when one side constantly feels like it has to earn the other's approval. The standards that you quietly hold yourself to become the standards everyone else assumes you can carry. So, if you never ask for help, people begin assuming you don't need it. If you constantly take on more than anyone expects of you, people begin expecting it. If you minimize your exhaustion because it's just part of the job, your nervous system eventually forgets what balance even feels like. This placement often shows up in ways that look admirable from the outside because you come off as prepared, responsible, reliable, the person people call when something important needs to get done. But beneath that strength, there can be a quieter story, one where your achievements receive more attention than your emotional world, one where people admire your resilience without realizing how rarely you've allowed yourself to rest, or even one where you've become so accustomed to carrying everything that you've forgotten what it feels like to be supported. What's interesting about Capricorn in the second house is that your self worth is often reflected in the way you respond when you are no longer producing. Who are you on the days when you're not accomplishing? Who are you when you are resting? Who are you when no one needs anything from you? Those moments reveal whether your relationship with yourself is built on achievement or acceptance. Now, your soul doesn't need you to dream smaller or accomplish less. It simply wants you to stop believing that your achievements are the only evidence that your life has value. Self love for Capricorn in the second house begins when you become just as committed to caring for yourself as you are to fulfilling your responsibilities. Some of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself with this placement is to first separate your worth from your work. Your work reflects your gifts, it does not determine your value. So the next time someone asks how you've been, notice whether your first response is a list of everything you've accomplished. Then ask yourself, who am I beyond what I've produced this week? Spend time answering that question. Next is to let rest become an act of responsibility. Rest isn't what happens after you've earned it. It's one of the reasons you're able to keep building a meaningful life. So schedule time for restoration with the same seriousness you schedule your obligations. Treat it as a commitment, not a reward. Next is to practice receiving without contributing. Your relationships should never depend entirely on what you provide. So allow someone to help you this week without immediately trying to repay them. Notice what emotions arise when you're simply allowed to receive. Next is to celebrate the person, not just the progress. Achievement deserves recognition, but so do kindness, wisdom, integrity, courage, and compassion. So at the end of each day, write down one thing you appreciated about who you were, not what you accomplished. Teach your soul that its identity is bigger than its output. And finally, become someone you don't have to impress. The relationship you're building with yourself shouldn't feel like another performance review. It should feel like coming home. So ask yourself, if I knew I never had to prove my worth again, how would I begin treating myself differently? Then choose one small way to live that answer today. A great affirmation for you having Capricorn in your second house is, my worth is not something I earn through achievement. I honor my ambition, but I also honor my humanity. I am worthy of love, rest, and belonging simply because I exist. What did this help you understand about yourself for the first time? Be sure to drop it in the comments below. And help this video reach who it's supposed to. So be sure to tap like, share this video, hype this video, and subscribe so the universe and the algorithm keep delivering. And if you felt seen here, a one-on-one is where we take that surface recognition and turn it into real personalized guidance. One session with me can shift how you see your entire life. Plus, I have over 10 session types that you can customize to whatever you're working through. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and get started. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Aquarius is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self-love because you finally found where you fit in. It experiences self-love because you stopped believing you were ever meant to. This is one of the greatest misunderstandings about Aquarius. Aquarius energy is often described as unique, independent, unconventional, or rebellious. Now, while those qualities may be visible on the surface, I don't think they're the heart of this placement. At its core, Aquarius carries the courage to become someone the world doesn't yet understand. And that can be a lonely journey because before the world celebrates originality, it usually questions it. It misunderstands it. It resists it. Sometimes it even rejects it. So when Aquarius falls into the second house, your relationship with yourself can become shaped by one lifelong tension. Do I stay true to myself, or do I become easier for other people to understand? Most with this placement have experienced moments where they felt different in ways they couldn't fully explain. So maybe your interests never quite matched the people around you. Maybe your dreams seemed unrealistic. Maybe your way of thinking challenged the expectations you inherited. Or maybe you've simply carried the quiet feeling that you're looking at life through a different window than everyone else. None of that is the problem. The problem begins when you decide that being understood is more important than being authentic. Because every time you reshape yourself into someone more acceptable, your soul experiences it as a quiet form of abandonment. One of the deepest forms of self love for Aquarius in the second house is realizing that your uniqueness was never the obstacle to your worth. It has always been one of the clearest expressions of it because your soul doesn't want you to spend your life trying to become more relatable. It wants you to become more real. Now, one of the easiest ways that you disconnect from yourself is by believing your differences are something you need to explain before they're allowed to exist. So you may spend years trying to make your ideas easier to understand, your dreams more practical, your personality more familiar, or your interests to be more socially acceptable. And this is because you've grown tired of feeling misunderstood. You may even find yourself editing your enthusiasm before sharing it, holding back your most original ideas, or laughing off the parts of yourself that actually matter the most. And over time, you become fluent in translation. You learn how to present yourself in ways that make other people more comfortable. But comfort isn't the same thing as authenticity. Another way this placement loses itself is through comparison. Ironically, even though Aquarius is one of the zodiac's most individualistic signs, you may still find yourself wondering why your path doesn't look like everyone else's. So you compare your timeline, your career, your finances, your lifestyle, or even your success without realizing that you're measuring an original blueprint against someone else's instructions. Your soul isn't asking you to become exceptional. It already knows that you are. It's asking you to stop using normal as the standard by which you measure your life. Now, of course, the way you relate to your individuality teaches the world how to relate to you as well. So, if you constantly dismiss your unconventional ideas before anyone else can respond to them, people may never realize how much insight you've been holding back. Or if you apologize for being different, others may assume your uniqueness is something to overlook rather than appreciate. Or if you wait until your vision has been fully validated before acting on it, you may spend years standing beside the very future you were meant to help create. This placement often appears in subtle but powerful ways. So, this could be as simple as you hesitating to share the idea because it sounds too different, or you downplay your dream because it doesn't fit a traditional path, or even you questioning your instincts because no one around you seems to understand them. Meanwhile, the very qualities you've been trying to soften are the ones that have the power to change your life. And what's really interesting about Aquarius in the second house is that your value often increases the moment you stop trying to become more conventional. People aren't always looking for someone who repeats what's already been said. They're looking for someone who helps them imagine what's possible next. Your originality isn't a distraction from your purpose. Very often, it's the reason you have one. Having Aquarius in the second house means that your soul doesn't need more approval. It needs more permission. Permission to think differently, permission to dream differently, and permission to build a life that doesn't require constant explanation. Self love for Aquarius in the second begins when you stop asking whether your path makes sense to everyone else and start asking whether it feels true to you. Now, some of the best ways for you to begin to pour back into yourself is to first stop treating your future self like the only version worth loving. Aquarius naturally lives in possibility, but sometimes that means your future self receives more appreciation than the person you are today. So write a letter from your future self, thanking your present self, not for what you've accomplished, but for the courage that you're showing right now. Your future is built by someone who deserves your love today. Next is to stop trying to earn your originality. You don't become more valuable by becoming more different. You become more peaceful by becoming more honest. So notice one part of your personality that you've been exaggerating, minimizing, or performing. Then ask yourself, who am I when I'm not trying to stand out or fit in? Spend some time getting to know that version of yourself. Next is to let yourself surprise yourself. Your soul doesn't want to become predictable. It wants to remain alive. So do something this month that your old identity wouldn't expect from you. Learn something outside your field. Visit a place you've never been. Start the idea you've been thinking about. One of the deepest forms of self-love for Aquarius is refusing to become trapped by your own history. Next is to let your humanity matter as much as your vision. You don't have to spend every day changing the world. Some days, changing your own life is enough. So ask yourself, have I been so focused on becoming impactful that I've forgotten to become fulfilled? Then choose one thing this week that serves no one but your own happiness. And finally, become the person who gives yourself permission. Many people spend years waiting for someone to tell them they're ready, qualified, or allowed. Your soul is waiting for something different. It's waiting for you to become that voice. So the next time you catch yourself asking, "Is this okay?" replace the question with, "Do I have my own permission?" Because the freedom you've been searching for is not going to come from more approval. It's going to come from finally realizing you've had the authority to choose your life all along. A great affirmation for you having Aquarius in your second house is, I honor the truth of who I am without asking for permission to be different. My authenticity is my foundation. My originality is my strength. And I trust myself to build a life that reflects both. If I just exposed a pattern you've been in, say it out loud in the comments and let me know. And be sure to help this video reach who it's supposed to. So hit that like button, share this video with your friends, hype this video, and subscribe so that the universe and the algorithm keep delivering. And if you know you're meant for more, but can't quite access it yet, a one-on-one with me will help you step into that version of yourself with clarity and direction. Plus, I offer over 10 different session styles to match what you actually need. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below. So be sure to check them out and get started. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. If Pisces is in your second house, your soul doesn't experience self love because you finally become everything everyone else needs you to be. It experiences self love because you remember where you end and where everyone else begins. Pisces is often described as compassionate, intuitive, and deeply empathetic. And while all those qualities are true, they actually point towards something deeper. Pisces doesn't simply feel its own emotions, it feels the emotional atmosphere around it. It senses what's unspoken, it notices what's hurting beneath the surface. It instinctively reaches toward suffering with an open heart. It's a beautiful gift, but gifts become burdens when they have no boundaries. And when Pisces falls into the second house, one of the deepest lessons around self love isn't learning how to care. It's learning that compassion should never require self erasure. Many with this placement become so accustomed to carrying what doesn't belong to them that they forget what their own emotional frequency even feels like. So you may absorb someone else's anxiety and mistake it for your own. You may feel responsible for another person's healing. Or you may struggle to separate your genuine desires from the expectations, emotions, or needs you've taken on over the years. Without realizing it, your relationship with yourself begins to fade into the background. And this is because you've spent so much of your life feeling everyone else. Your soul doesn't long for you to become less compassionate. It longs for you to remember that your own inner world deserves the same tenderness you've spent your life offering everyone else. One of the deepest forms of self love for Pisces in the second house is recognizing that your sensitivity isn't asking you to carry the world. It's asking you to remain deeply connected to yourself while living within it. Now, one of the most subtle ways that you disconnect from yourself is by confusing empathy with responsibility. There's a subtle difference between understanding someone's pain and believing it's yours to fix. Yet, this placement can blur that line so gently that you don't even notice it's happening. You begin carrying conversations long after they've ended. You replay someone else's struggles in your own mind. You feel guilty for choosing yourself because you know someone else is hurting. Or you even postpone your dreams because someone you love isn't ready. So you wait, you rescue, you absorb, you sacrifice. And this is because your heart genuinely wants to ease suffering. But over time, that beautiful instinct can teach your nervous system something painful. If someone else is struggling, my needs can wait. And eventually, your own emotional world becomes the place you visit last. And your soul is not experiencing this as kindness, it's experiencing it as neglect. Because every time you disappear into someone else's life, you leave less of yourself available for your own. The greatest act of compassion your soul is asking for isn't learning how to care less about others. It's learning how to care about yourself with the same sincerity. Now, the way you protect your own energy teaches other people how to honor it too. So if you consistently overextend yourself, People will begin assuming you have endless capacity. If you always say yes before checking in with yourself, others may never realize how often you've ignored your own needs. The way that this energy shows up for this placement can be subtle. So it could be where you instinctively understand people who have never taken the time to understand you. You may forgive before you've fully processed what happened. You could keep giving second, third, and fourth chances because you can always see the wounded part of someone else. And you may even find yourself grieving potential more than reality, holding on to who someone could become instead of honestly seeing who they actually are today. What's interesting about Pisces in the second house is that your self worth is often reflected in what you allow yourself to carry. Not everything you're feeling belongs to you. Not every burden is yours to solve. And not every ending is yours to prevent. So every time you put something down that was never yours to hold, your soul receives a powerful message. I matter too. Now, your soul doesn't need you to close your heart. It needs you to remember that you are one of the people your heart was always meant to protect. Self love for Pisces in the second house begins when compassion stops flowing in only one direction. Some of the best ways that you can begin to pour back into yourself is to first stop measuring your heart by how much it can carry. One of the easiest ways Pisces in the second abandons itself is by believing that loving deeply means carrying deeply. But those aren't the same thing. You can love someone without carrying their fear. You can care without absorbing. You can remain present without becoming responsible for another person's healing. So, the next time you notice yourself emotionally exhausted after helping someone, don't ask, how can I help more? Instead, ask, what did I quietly pick up that wasn't mine to carry? That question will begin teaching your nervous system the difference between compassion and emotional responsibility. Next is to let yourself have an inner world no one else has access to. Pisces naturally shares its emotional energy, but your soul also needs experiences that belong only to you. A private place where your thoughts, dreams, imagination, and spirit aren't being shaped by anyone else's expectations. So create one ritual that exists solely for your relationship with yourself. Not to become more productive, not to heal faster, and not to help anyone else. Simply because your inner world deserves somewhere to breathe. Next is to stop mistaking emotional exhaustion for purpose. Many people with this placement assume they're living their purpose because they're constantly needed. But being needed isn't always the same thing as being fulfilled. Sometimes you've become indispensable simply because you've forgotten how to disappoint people. So ask yourself, if no one needed anything from me today, who would I be? Sit with the discomfort of that question. It may introduce you to parts of yourself that have been waiting for your attention for years. Next is to let beauty nourish you again. Pisces is one of the few signs whose nervous system genuinely heals through beauty. So this is music, art, nature, silence, ocean waves, sunlight coming through a window. Any type of beautiful experience can remind your soul that life is more than surviving other people's emotions. So choose one beautiful experience this week with no goal except allowing yourself to fully receive it. Don't photograph it. Don't turn it into content. Don't make it productive. Simply just let beauty reach you. And finally, become someone you return to. Every relationship in your life will change. People will come, people will leave. Life will unfold in ways that you cannot control. But one relationship will remain through every version of your life. And of course, that's the relationship that you have with yourself. So your soul doesn't need perfection from you. It needs consistency. It needs to know that no matter what happens around you, you will come back. So at the end of each day, ask yourself, did I return to myself today? Not, was I successful? Not, did everyone else feel okay? Simply, did I remember to come home to myself? Over time, that question becomes one of the deepest acts of self-love you'll ever practice. A great affirmation for you having Pisces in your second house is, I no longer lose myself in the lives of others. I honor my own spirit with the same compassion I offer the world, and I return to myself again and again with love. What did this help you understand about yourself for the first time? Be sure to drop it in the comments below. And help this video reach who it's supposed to. So be sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, hype this video, and subscribe so the universe and the algorithm keeps us synced. And if you felt seen here, a one-on-one is where we take that surface recognition and turn it into real personalized guidance. One session can shift how you see your entire life. Plus, I have over 10 different session styles that you can customize to whatever you're working through. All of my offerings are linked in the description box below, so be sure to check them out and get started. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching.